online class. I just wanted to go over a few things. This is a little bit of a variation of what I do for my on-site class there in the classroom. Just a little slideshow I did, Introduction to Computers. This might help you just a little bit as I'll be talking about a few things. One thing as far as what a computer is, hopefully everybody read the chapter, but basically a computer is any device that performs instruction sets. Any device at all. This can be anything from, as most of you are familiar with, electronic, from electromechanical. You might want to Google electromechanical and mechanical, to also biological computers. You as a human being have a brain which follows instruction sets. Your brain is a computer. Also, all living organisms follow instruction sets. Whether they be the most basic of instruction sets, they still follow them. Those are also computers. So be aware that the computer can be anything that follows instruction sets. In your home, microwave, oven now, coffee maker, you name it, everything's basically computerized. So be aware that this goes for all things, okay? A few other things I'm going to touch on rather quickly is whenever a computer works, it follows 4 different basic things, okay? You have input, you have processing, you have output, and you have storage. And the best way of putting this into a good idea, a good story to look at is you have the 4 different things, right? I'm gonna give a story of when I actually worked at Yellowstone National Park one summer when I was much younger, and we were gonna go hiking, and over there we have a bear danger. You have grizzly bears, you have black bears. Of course, the grizzly bears are the ones that can really ruin your day. So we decided that if we ever saw a bear, that everybody would just run, and the slowest person would get munched. I know it's kind of not very smart, but that's what we decided, because over there you either had a choice of playing dead or climbing up a tree, and you had nothing but lodgepole pines, and those are really, really, really skinny trees, and it wouldn't be much sense climbing up a tree. Who would want to lay down on the ground and get bitten by a bear, pretending to be dead, or clawed by a bear? So we were walking along, and we saw a bear. So when we saw the bear, that's a visual. That is input coming into our brain, into our CPU. That is a visual input. Okay? So we saw the bear visually. Then our brain says, hey, this is a bear. What do I do? At that point, our brain is processing what we just saw. And since we already had some instructions that said to ourselves, if we see a bear, we're going to run. After processing what we saw and going through our instructions, we ran, okay, which was basically our output. We ran as fast as we could. As we look back, however, you could see for some reason the bear was actually running the other way. And it was a good thing that it was a black bear and that it was not a grizzly, because a grizzly probably would have chased after us. The brown bear was actually running back the other way. And then finally, storage was, after we saw it, we remembered that we should not go in that area because there was a bear around there. So we stored that output as memory. Okay? So it's always input, processing, output, and storage. And a computer, you could have something coming through the keyboard, through a DVD-ROM drive, gets into the computer. It's it's processed by the CPU. We get a result, and we can view the result potentially on the display, and we can decide whether or not we want to store that result. So this is a real quick idea of input, processing, and output. Okay. As far as components in the computer, some of the main components, and hopefully you read this. You have processor, which is the main thing. That's what processes most of your instructions. That's what we're most familiar with. That's what we most hear about Intel Inside, AMD. That's a processor. You also have a motherboard. And the motherboard is actually just as important as the processor. In fact, sometimes, if you don't have a good motherboard, doesn't matter how good a processor you have. Okay. Motherboard, why is it named motherboard? Maybe a tad sexist, but basically what's been the general idea of a mother's role at the home. Basically, she handles everything, she takes care of everything, she makes everything work correctly. The motherboard does the same thing. Allows all the different components of a computer to work together and talk to each other, communicate with each other. If they don't communicate with each other, well, it doesn't matter that you have a great CPU. And maybe one of these days I'll do a little audio with a couple of stories I have on that. Next is a memory. That's where you store everything. You have different types of memory. The fastest memory obviously is random access memory. You also have what's on your hard drive. You also can have flash drives. You can have memory and tape, etc. Okay. You also have your drives, which we just talked about. And then we have all our external components, keyboard, mouse, printer, etc. display, etc. One other thing I want to talk about really quickly. It sort of mentions it in the book. Probably shouldn't mention it at the beginning, but there is such a thing as data and there is information. Okay, data basically is just individual facts, while information is usefully organized facts. How does this work? Well, let's say, for example, you as a person, there's a lot of things that we could know about you, a lot of facts, like you might like pizza, you might wear a size 10 shoe, you might have your hair red. There's all these different things. Also, you might go to school, you might have a certain GPA, you're taking certain classes, you're on financial aid, you have an address, you have a phone number. Okay? These are all just facts by themselves. However, for the college's point of view, do we need to know what kind of pizza you like or what type shoe you wear or what color hair you have? We want to know how to reach you. We want to know your GPA. We want to know what classes you're taking. We want to know your address. So us taking just the things that we need then become information. We don't need to know about your shoes, etc. What we need is how it relates to what you need to do in school. So that is information. Somebody else might want to know, for example, your mom might want to know what size shoe you wear to buy your shoes, what kind of food you like. That would then be information for them. So information is usefully organized facts. Data is just individual facts. Okay? As far as operating systems, I won't go through this too much because I want to keep this a little short. Operating system, you might want to look them up. First, you had the Apple operating system. You had the first version of Windows. And Windows has gone on and on and on until we have Windows 7. You might want to look these up. It's rather important. And next time, I'll probably give you a couple of stories as to how, a highway story and a car story, how it relates to a motherboard. Okay? So that's all for now. I'll probably put a little audio later talking about some of our assignments. A few of y'all had some issues.